Hey, what's up? All right, take two. I was trying to go live a minute ago, but I'm always learning. So this is like my second one ever. And it might not be the best time to do this because here in the States anyway, it's 4th of July is tomorrow. I don't even know what day it is, but there's a lot of fireworks tonight. So a lot of people are getting ready, amping up to watch all the lights in the sky if you're into that sort of thing tonight and tomorrow. But what I wanted to share with you guys is the independence of freedom when you set boundaries. But the problem is a lot of times people feel guilty for setting boundaries, especially with a narcissist, right? And you might end up feeling guilty with other people too as a result of the way a narcissist might treat you when you set boundaries. Because what I found, a lot of people who've never had narcissism in their life, they don't have a problem setting boundaries. So it's mostly with the people who have had that experience. So if you've had an experience where you've set a boundary and you feel guilty, and you're watching this at any time, please comment below because it helps not just you, but everybody, because it's like a living, breathing testimony. So you might have seen the thumbnail, which is, have you tried the A through F scale, right? And what is that anyway? What is the A through F scale? Well, if you've ever seen Dr. Ramani, she has like the ABC method. So it's pulled from there, but mine is just a little bit different. It's very similar, but different. Okay, Dr. Ramani is a therapist. She talks a lot about narcissism on YouTube if you haven't watched any of her videos. Anywho, so the A through F model, we're going to get to that. First, let's talk about setting boundaries. What are boundaries, right? Like people, again, who've never had trouble with this are like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal because they don't worry so much about how it's affecting other people. They don't worry so much if they're going to be well received. But if you have had this in your past, you might feel a little worrisome about how it's going to be received. And that comes from a really good place. So first, let's talk about what a boundary is not. A boundary is not a demand that you're putting on somebody. Like, I demand that you call me princess. I demand, people say that those are boundaries, but that's not necessarily a boundary. That's just a demand, right? A boundary is if you're entering into my home, maybe there's a boundary that you have white carpets and you don't want everyone to come in with muddy shoes. So a boundary that you set, if you come into my home, you take off your shoes. Simple things like that, but they can get larger and larger. And again, that's maybe seems like no big deal, but if you've been a target of narcissism, then sometimes it can be scary to do those little and big things. So often when you're setting a boundary with somebody who isn't mistreating you, it's not a big deal. They're not going to gaslight you and be like, well, why do you want to do that? Don't you know that there's carpet cleaner? Don't you know that there's a million ways that you could shampoo your carpet? Don't you know that everybody in the world doesn't take off their shoes? And it's like all this gaslighting that comes at you and shame for setting that boundary, right? But with somebody who just respects it, it's like, okay, cool. That's how you operate in your house or in your business or in your relationships. So a boundary is not demanding something that's so far-fetched to make other people do something to your request, right? A boundary is, hello, hi, welcome. What? Financial crises. Help you're in financial crises. I was actually going to speak on that too, because that is a boundary setting. Right now, the world, especially here in the States, just because I live here, right? I can't speak for everybody everywhere. I can't even speak for everyone in the States. But right now, there is a boundary that has been smashed over, trampled over when it comes to the financial crises. And I'm so sorry that you're experiencing financial crises. So many people are. You are not alone. I work with people who are absolutely poverty ridden, and I've been there. And I've also worked with multi-gazillionaires. I haven't been there. I haven't been there, not yet. But it's affecting everybody right now, the financial crises. And a boundary with that is like, hey, I'm experiencing this. Some people are so disconnected that they'll gaslight you into saying, what? I don't experience that. It must be you. It's your fault. The economy's great. No, it isn't. No, it is not. It is not great. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It's really not great because, like I said, I know millionaires who are struggling right now. Maybe not struggling at the same level as the poverty-ridden people, but they're having a hard time. So I do really promote personal responsibility. I do promote taking ownership over yourself, and that's why we're going to talk about boundaries today. But sometimes things are out of your control, and that's why the things that you can control, like how you choose to live, how you choose to be with other people, what you will accept into your life and what you will not, those are things that you can control. But you can't control the whole world, and you can't control the whole economic status of everybody. So I want you to know some of that is not your fault. A lot of people are feeling the pain right now. So I'm really sorry if that's you. I have felt it tremendously. My dad just died, and oh my gosh, the elder abuse coming from the death industry on his widowed, my stepmom, his widowed wife. I mean, it's just horrible. Talk about boundaries and gaslighting. Oh my gosh, the insurance companies running a racket. So the A through F scale method that I want to talk about is grading your boundaries on that. Okay, so some people might be an A in your life where they ask you for help. You're going to help them always because you know that it's not this weird barter system. It's not this weird, you better help me because I helped you, no scorecard. And so you're willing and ready and wanting to help them. And that is the person that time and time again, you just trust, right? That's the A person. The B person is, well, I'm going to help them because they're nice or because they're in a bad situation. Maybe I'm going to blur what I need a little bit because they're in need and I want to be not selfish and helping, right? But then the C is the person that's like just crappy. They're just crappy to you all the time. And you're like, wait, why am I, every boundary I've set, they push it. That's going to be the narcissist. They're in the C, D, and F category, right? The D is it rhymes with ick, right? And that can be a male or a female because narcissists always like to say, well, don't you know females can be narcissists? Yes, I've said that in so many videos. Yes, females can be narcissists. I believe that a female narcissist came up with that lie. That is a gaslighting lie to say that it's only men. No, it's not. It's not a gender disorder. It's a personality disorder. And then the F are, F it. I can't help you. They're not going to respect your boundary. That's the narcissist, sociopath. They're not even going to try. But here's the thing. A narcissist is always going to push your boundary because to them, it's a game. They like it. They actually get inspired by you setting a boundary because it can increase the chances of the trauma bond with you, because then they're like, well, are you sure you don't want to do that? I think that's stupid that you don't want to do that. I think, and they'll gaslight you, they'll shame you, they'll tell you that the economy is great, and all that kind of stuff. She's a smart woman. Hey, thanks. Does it stink? Does it stink? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that means, but please elaborate. Maybe you're saying something mean. I don't know because I didn't see earlier, but here's the deal. Discernment is king when it comes to this stuff. Discernment is king. If your heart is in the right place, if you know that what you're doing is to help yourself, to help others, it's not to hurt people, then you have to discern when somebody's just trying to push that to bulldoze you and get you trauma bonded, to completely gaslight you. You have to be able to have the discernment in your faculties, right? How are you going to know though? How are you going to know when you've always put yourself on the back burner? I don't suggest putting yourself on any burner, by the way. That doesn't sound good at all. But when you've been accustomed to putting yourself last, sometimes it's really hard to set boundaries. I mean, in my business, I've been in business for 11 years as an entrepreneur, and it's tough sometimes because you want to help a lot of people as a business owner, including yourself. And yet there are some people who just want to take advantage of that. And so for instance, I had somebody one time come to me when I had a brick and mortar, and they wanted to they wanted to do a workshop in my brick and mortar that I was paying rent for. I was paying for the lights. I was doing the marketing. I had the website. I was not eating because I was putting all my money into the business, but people don't realize that because you're not sitting there crying, you're busy working. And so this girl had approached me to do a workshop at my studio. And I said, that sounds great. I actually like your workshop idea. What is the percentage that you're interested in? She said, what do you mean percentage? I said, well, what's the split? Is it going to be like a 40-60 split? Or what do you think should be the split between us, since I'll be promoting and paying the rent and doing all the things with my studio to help your workshop? She said, I don't think there should be a split. So what do you mean? She said, well, I think I should get 100%. Why exactly should you get 100%? She said, because if I don't get 100%, then you're greedy. Wait, what? I was like, wait, how does that work out in business? She was like, yeah, I think you're really greedy if you don't give me 100%. So that was gaslighting. That was everything. And then she went on to do like a smear campaign on me because I didn't give her 100%. I had to try to explain to her without being condescending that that's not how business works. So then she countered me with, oh, I've talked to some other business owners and they all agree that that's greedy. What are you talking about? This is somebody who does not understand business, okay? So I had to set a boundary. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do business that way. I would be happy to work out a deal with you. You can come back to me with some kind of percentage, but 100% to you is not a deal. That's just a charity. I'm just giving to you all of my resources, right? So I had to set a boundary. And when I did that, she defamed me. She ran around and said lies essentially about me because she didn't get her way, because she didn't like that boundary. So that's a very easy, typical boundary that many businesses are going to give. But if you're thick into people pleasing, you might feel really guilty for that. So you have to have discernment, because you might feel like, damn, did I do something wrong? Because now she's running around saying that I'm greedy, and I don't understand. I'm eating saltine crackers. I haven't even paid myself in 2 years. But people who've never built anything don't understand. They really don't understand how business works in that way, right? So if that's been you, if you've tried to make a deal with somebody and they won't negotiate with you, that's a simple boundary, right? Or maybe you're out with somebody and you say, let me try to think of an example on the fly. Say this person always gets, hammered when you're with them. And you're like, hey, I would love to go out. I'm a little bit concerned about you getting hammered, because maybe they get hammered and then they're talking smack about everybody. And you're like, it's not a good look. And I actually care about you. So maybe let's, not get hammered. And you're not saying you have to do this, whatever. You're just saying, hey, if I'm going to go out with you, maybe not get hammered. And then they, that wasn't a great example, but they just bulldoze you and say, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And you're no fun and blah, blah, and then you feel guilty and you're like, why did I do something wrong? You're allowed to set boundaries like that. Now, here's the thing, and I made a short about this. You got to check in when you feel that guilt and you feel the butterflies. You got to check in with, am I feeling guilty because what I said was outlandish? Am I feeling guilty because I'm fearful that they're not going to like me anymore? Am I feeling guilty because I'm fearful that they're going to now defame me, or go around and, defame and tell lies is the same thing, right? What am I fearful of? Ask yourself that, and ask yourself, why is it that I respect this person enough to take this on, but I'm not getting respect in return? That's where the discernment comes from. And then you go through the A through F scale and see where are they on that scale, like grade them, right? Another way to do this, and you can do this with dating, any kind of relationships, you take a sip of water, is you can make a list, say, of 100 things that are boundaries for you, and then grade the person that you're wondering about or feeling guilty about. Grade them And you'll see, like one time I did this with somebody that I was interested in when I was like in my 20s, and they literally got 10%. And then it was really clear. It became less personal. I was like, well, of course they're showing up 10% of the way that I want to be treated, because that's just the facts right here. Instead of trying to change them, I realized, oh, it's 10% of the type of person that I'm looking for. This is never going to work, right? So it's not to be mean and it's not to judge. It's to have discernment. Let's see what's going on here. That shorts comedy. Thank you. Take your shirt off. Yeah, no thanks. You can go over to OnlyFans. I'm not on there though. I'm not on OnlyFans. So you'll find somebody else. Don't be rude. They're being childish. Hey, thank you. $5. I appreciate you, Electric Tree. You're always so positive. I really do appreciate the positive feedback that I get, because sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's hard to do this stuff. I love doing it, and I'm doing it because I'm an acting teacher and a lot of my students are scared to do it, but then I wasn't doing it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start doing it because I love teaching and I love helping people. And if I'm going to say, go do a live or go do something, I better do it too, right? Because I practice what I preach. Okay. I practice what I preach. I don't act that much at all anymore. I actually don't act at all anymore. I just direct and teach, but so I'm not going to do that necessarily, but the other things. Just got here. What are we talking about? We're talking about setting boundaries. If you feel guilty for setting boundaries with a narcissist. So let me know here if anybody has ever felt guilty. Have you guys ever felt guilty for setting a boundary with a narcissist? Now, there's a few things that can happen when you set a boundary. If they're not a narcissist, they're going to respect it and be like, okay, cool. Even if they disagree, right? Like if you don't take off your shoes in your house, but you walk into somebody else's house where they say they take off their shoes, you're not going to be like, well, I don't do that in my house. You're just going to say, cool, that's a boundary in this house. I'm going to abide by it. It's not a big deal. I don't have to get you to change your ways. When you come to my house, you can keep your shoes on. You get to set the rules in your own house. This is also your house. You get to set the rules with your own being, right? You don't have to abide by everybody else's shizzle. But when you feel really, really guilty for doing that, that might be a red flag that this could be a narcissist. Say you don't allow dogs in your house. And somebody's like, well, I allow dogs in my house. So then their dog comes in your house with muddy feet and they're trampling all over your furniture and jumping up and down everywhere. You're like, hey, cool, but maybe you could tie your dog up outside since your dog has no manners. And they're like, no, this is how I am with my dog. You're like, well, that's cool. Then you could go home with your dog, right? Maybe both of y'all are biatches. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just rude. So only a narcissist is going to push that boundary, get you to doubt yourself for that. Somebody who's just respectful and kind is going to be like, cool, that's cool. In my house, it's different, but we don't have to compare apples and oranges all the time. Yeah. So do you guys feel like my mom says it's her house, her rules? Yeah. When I assert boundaries, she brings that up. That is exactly right. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's wildly amazing to me how rude some people can be when they enter somebody's house, when they enter somebody's business. It's just like you don't go into an Italian restaurant with your Chinese food and spread it out over the table. It's just common sense, but common sense isn't common anymore. So that's going to be a boundary in that Italian restaurant. Hey, you can't bring in another restaurant's food into this restaurant. Why can't I? I eat all this food. Well, it's great that you eat this food. You can't do it here because we're selling a different food here. It doesn't have to be so personal, right? But this world has become a place where everyone's trampled on and the good people are so scared to speak up. That's why I'm like, enough is enough. I mean, I love good art. I love good acting. I love music. I love all that stuff. And if we trample on all the good people that are trying to just do their thing and create stuff and not allow them to have it the way that they want, all of that good art is going to be gone. And we're just going to be in this weird dictatorship that's like, is it okay if I make this painting? Is that to your approval? No, that's not how this works. There is room enough for everybody. You don't have to like everything. We don't have to all agree on everything. I mean, when did that become a thing? That is so weird, right? But I really do believe that this is a war with narcissists. I mean, it really is. And some people go, well, that's ridiculous, Leah, but it is. It is. And they go, well, no, it's the devil. Well, hey, the devil's very tricky, right? And then some people say, well, the devil doesn't exist. Well, that's the first thing the devil wants you to believe. That just made me spit some fire out of here, because that's the first thing the devil wants you to believe. There is absolutely darkness at play. You might not want to believe in a pitchfork and like fire, and that's fine. But if you can't admit that there is darkness in the world, then you have been brainwashed, or you're just so engrossed in that darkness that you want to gaslight everybody into thinking there's no darkness. I mean, come on now. Come on now. What about people who personalize boundaries? What do you mean by that, personalized boundaries? I'm curious what you mean exactly by that. Because the people who make demands, that's not a boundary. That's not a boundary, in my opinion, where they're like, you have to say that I'm the best looking person on the planet. That's my boundary. It's like, no, that's just weird. That's weird. Then no, I don't have to say that. Why? What? So if that's a personalized boundary, I don't know what you mean by personalized boundary, but personalized also like maybe the personal bubble. The personal bubble is different. The personal bubble's good. I mean, people don't understand that either. I was not all for the, all the business during the vid. I was not on board with all that. However, I will admit one thing that I actually liked. I actually liked a little bit of the distancing, because I was like, dude, if I just kind of like turn like this and I'm in line and you're breathing on my neck, you're too close. You are too close. What is going on? If you're in the grocery store with your little cart, because this is how you drive your cart, I know you do, like just like this, right? And you're in the grocery store and you stop to look at something on the shelf and somebody bumps into you because they are that close. No, you can back it up. But people aren't noticing spatial boundaries either. It's like, that comes from reading behavior. That comes from so much of the work that I do in the Meisner technique. I'm going to always talk about the Meisner technique, guys. So I know some people are like, why is she always talking about that? Well, that's because it's my passion. It's my business. And in the Meisner technique, it's an acting technique, but it's geared for leaders and entrepreneurs, all sorts of people. One of the things that it does that's so powerful, what I love about it, is it teaches you to read behavior. Most people don't. They don't read behavior. If somebody really is open and they're like, hey, come on into my space and hug me and squeeze me and all that, you're going to get that from their behavior. If you're noticing, right? If you're noticing spatial boundaries. But if somebody's kind of like, you don't barge in on that. But some people do. They don't get it. It's amazing how out of tune people are sometimes to their own aura of influence. Personal boundaries with other people, right? Even in asking questions. I made a short and I was talking about that. Sometimes you can ask too many questions and you can come off like you're interrogating somebody, even though your intention is good, but that can all be skirted just by reading their behavior. It's like if they're like, yeah, I don't really feel like talking about that. Well, that's something that they've just actually said. And then you're like, well, let's just keep talking about it. How about this? How about that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's like, whoa, you're not listening and you're not reading behavior. I had this guy one time in one of my Meisner classes, and he was like 6'7". He was really a big dude. And he would literally walk in the studio like this. And he's like, I don't get why everyone always thinks I'm so aggressive. Everyone's always scared of me. Why is it that everyone like looks at me like this wherever I go? And I'm like, you really don't know? And everyone in the class was like, you don't know why? It's like, dude, you're 6'7". You're coming in the room like this at everybody. It's like, come on, buddy. Maybe that's why. Maybe not everyone's going to respond to that unless some dude wants to headbutt you and he's like, ah, that's awesome. You know, but if you just kind of check into the temperature of the room, not everybody's going to be into that probably, right? Let's see, like when I don't want to be hugged or touched, she takes it very personally. Yes, yes, that's such a normal thing. And by the way, if you have any kids, please don't tell them that they have to kiss their uncle, grandma, whoever. Let them have that boundary if they don't feel like it. And they don't have to say they love you even. Let that come from a good place of heart, right? Because we're teaching kids to not have boundaries, and then they don't have boundaries. And that's how narcissists are formed. Do you guys know Jojo Siwa? You probably heard of her, even if you don't watch her, right? Yeah, Jojo. I gotta think about this girl. I was worried about that chick from the beginning, I gotta say, because my daughter was all about Jojo Siwa, you know, because she's a Disney star and she got her start on YouTube and all the things. And so I started watching her, and she was singing the Sunshine song, you know, like la la la, like John Benet Ramsey style. And so I started looking into her because I was like, I am worried about this chick. I am super worried. And as an acting teacher who's worked with a lot of kids, my base is adults now, but I have worked with a lot of kids. I worry about that. And I was like, this girl's going to go off the rails soon. And sure enough, she has. Because I was watching her on that show Dance Moms, and that one woman, this is how a narcissist can gaslight you. The woman, you can look up this short, I just saw it the other day, but the woman was like, you're not entitled to anything. And little Jojo Siwa's like, I don't know, 5 years old, 6 years old. And she's like about, you know, in tears, like terrified at this woman who runs the dance show. I don't even know the lady's name. And this is where the woman was saying something good that's supposed to be inspiring, right? Like, no, you do have to work for things. I believe in that. I believe no one's entitled to anything. You got to work for it. I totally believe in that. But then this is the gaslighting. She's like, don't you cry, don't you cry. And Jojo Siwa is like, setting up a boundary. She's like, if you keep yelling at me like that, I'm going to cry. And she's like, her chin's quivering and everything. And I could see, I'm like, see, there it is, right there. Jojo Siwa had the empathy bashed out of her. You know, I don't know if she's a good kid or a good person or not. I know nothing. I'm just looking at the behavior of this poor kid who's actually being emotionally abused in that moment. And so it's no wonder why she's rebelling, or maybe, I don't know, there's a whole other shizzle show going on, right? Because her handlers and people are now, I don't know, it's all politics now. It's crazy. But she's a mess, in my opinion. And I think that she could get it turned around. But when you have a base of 7 to 10-year-olds, it's not cool. It's not freedom to go, now I'm down in a bottle of Jack Daniels and gyrating on the stage. You can't pivot that hard that fast when you have a group of 7 to 10-year-olds who love you, and that's how you became famous. You got to have some emotional intelligence. But when you've been come up with people all around you who are bashing you for having boundaries and knocking the empathy out of you, I totally understand why that's happened. It doesn't make it right, but I can see exactly why that's happened. Yeah, so when you don't want to be hugged and touched, you know, that is okay. and the people who are going to push that boundary are, quite frankly, creepy. I'm sorry. I would never make my daughter give me a hug at me. I'm her mom, and I'm not going to make her hug me if she doesn't want to, right? And nobody, that's weird for anybody. Nobody's obligated, whether it's family or anybody, to give you a kiss, you know, like creepy old uncle who's like, give me a kiss. And you're like, I don't want to. And everyone's like, come on, that's your uncle. That is teaching the kid to not have boundaries and to feel guilty for having boundaries. So then when you're an adult, after you've been told ever since you're a kid, what's wrong with you? You should hug Uncle Mike. Now he feels bad. Now, you know, you hurt his feelings. Go apologize. It's like, oh my God, no. That kid was standing up for themselves, and now their line is totally blurred and messed up. They have no clue because mom, dad, cousin, brother, whatever, all shame them for trying to say what they're comfortable with. That's so bizarre to me. That's not okay. All right, let's see. All right, some people are, I don't even have moderators on here, but YouTube is holding some things for review. So, dear God, that's kind of scary, huh? What is people saying? That's some scary shizzle. All right, so here's the thing. Have discernment, go through the A through F and see, where are you with that? Where are other people with that? And then you can also check in with yourself when somebody sets a boundary with you to go, you know, was I just checked? Was I just put in my place? Is there something to learn here? And sometimes that comes from, you know, you trying to fix things. I remember one time I was with an old friend of mine, and she had told me that somebody had died that she wasn't close to at all. She was like, somebody died today and I wasn't close to them at all, but it was still, you know, sad. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And she was like, it's not a big deal because I wasn't close to them, but it's just brings into light, you know, mortality and stuff. I was like, yeah, that's true. I said, actually, it was really weird because just today, at that time, this was like 20 some years ago, but this lady had pulled up right in front of my house, and I could see her, and she was like really disconnected. She was like 85 years old, and she pulled over and she died. She straight up died. I mean, she was so smart to like pull over. And so of course I call the ambulance, and the ambulance comes and everybody takes care of her. It was actually kind of weird because until they could identify her body from her next of kin, they just put a sheet over her, and she was in the front of my house for 24 hours. It was a little bizarre. So I told her that had happened because it was weird. And she got really mad really quick. She was like, that was so insensitive of you to tell me that story. I was like, why? Like, we were just talking about death. And so then I felt terrible. I was like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then I kept apologizing, and she was like, stop apologizing. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And I felt so guilty for that. And then I wrestled with that for a long time. I'm like, she was setting a boundary, and I guess I stepped over the boundary. But now, 20 years later, and lots of therapy, I realized, no, that was just a shitty moment all the way around. So sometimes you can feel guilty for trampling somebody's boundary, and sometimes we do. Everyone makes mistakes, right? I mean, nobody's perfect. That's another thing narcissists love to say. They love to jump on here and go, oh, so you're shitting all over everybody? No, I'm not actually. Are you taking it personally? Because maybe something's ringing true for you, or what? Why is that happening? Yeah, I think you guys got the wrong thing. I think you need to go into some of these older comments I just saw into the OnlyFans. So anyway, that's really all I got today. If you're feeling guilty for setting a boundary, check in, go through the A through F, check in with, am I feeling fearful because I'm scared I'm going to lose something? And remember what you're going to gain by setting that boundary. And please, please, please do not teach your kids or try to teach other kids, if you're a teacher, that their boundary is not okay. I'll share this one last story with you. One of my daughter's teachers, my daughter was having a tough time going to school, and that's going to be a whole other topic for another day, because some of these school things that have been going on are just cuckoo bananas. I got to set some boundaries with the school, actually, because I don't know what has come to the world, but I guess they close the school now when it's nice outside. I'm like, what? I grew up in Colorado, and we never closed the school when it was blizzard, or I was hoping for it. Now they close school if it's a dusting of snow. They close school if it's sunny out. I'm like, really? What is happening? So that's a whole other topic. But my daughter didn't want to go to school, and I'm kind of starting to clue into why. But anyhow, some weird politics stuff. But I got to the school, and I was talking to her teacher with her, and I'm like, we really need to figure out what's going on here, because I want to support her to go to school. And the teacher in front of my daughter, I think meaning well, but it's language, we got to really be cognizant of language. She said to my daughter, "Why are you making your mom's life harder?" Like, what? Excuse me, you don't have a right to declare how you make my life at all. Not at all. And I told my daughter, and I told her, you don't get to declare that. And I told my daughter, I said, honey, even on our most challenging day, my life is infinitely greater because you're here. You do not make my life harder because you're here. And nobody else gets to declare that for me anyhow. Like, I'm my own person. So that's another way you can set boundaries. Sometimes people like to say how you feel and what you should accept. No. And I've talked before on here about my acting classes, and I know some people it's way over their head, but for those of you who get this, I know you're emotionally intelligent, and so you get it. The reason why acting can help so much is sometimes you can role play these situations that happen in life, and maybe you're like, I wish I had said this. I wish I had set that boundary. But in the moment, it's really scary too. Well, in acting class, you get to actually do that without any repercussions in your life except positive repercussions, right? And it'll be really positive as an actor, because in acting, actually, it's really helpful to react. But in life, sometimes you have to set up that boundary and not react, especially if you're around a narc. You're going to have to gray rock. And that's when you're really acting, because you have to just be like, oh, cool, while your blood is boiling inside. And you have to act like it's nothing. If maybe you have to co-parent with somebody, that is a tough spot. And if you have to co-parent with an ex-narcissist or somebody, God bless you. That is hard. I don't have to do that. And I feel for you if you have to do that, because I understand you have to talk to that person. You have to communicate with them. But also, even in that, you can draw boundaries. I've known some people who are like, oh yeah, and if you're watching, you know who I'm talking, I'm talking to you in this case, but I'm not saying this out of hate. I'm saying it out of love, and I'm not going to name any names, right? So if the shoe fits, you can wear it if you want. But I was talking to this one beautiful soul, and this person was like beat up by somebody, by their ex, right? And yet they still let their kid be with them. And it's like, that's not setting a boundary. And then you do wonder. You're like, well, did that happen or didn't that happen? Because in that case, you really should go no contact for the safety of your kid. But if you're not like being physically harmed in any way, like physically beaten up, right? But you're being emotionally scarred, I get it. But there's nothing, no basis for like going no contact. That's a tricky one, right? Because sometimes it really is, but if that's a parent or whatever, definitely seek therapy. None of this is ever to replace therapy. And if you are in danger, definitely get help. I mean, I really do believe that you're smart. So please get help if you're in danger with setting a boundary. Because when you do set boundary, some of that guilt comes up because you're straight up scared. Because some people will go crazy. They'll go crazy. I set a boundary once with a sociopath, and my therapist had said he's a sociopath. I didn't call him that. I didn't know that he was until I talked to my therapist, and he was like, you got to ghost him. And that was the first person I ever just went straight up no contact with. And it was scary because I drew a boundary with him. And he was like beating on the door, and it was scary. I felt like I was in like a Lifetime movie. It's like, no, okay, that's, you got to set a strong boundary, a hard no on those kind of situations, right? Yeah, kids come first. I'm glad you brought it up about boundaries with hugging and kissing. Oh my gosh, it's so true. I've seen it. It's so gross when people say, and also too, just in regular, like quote unquote healthy relationships, you hear it, right? I love you should come from a genuine place, even those words. So often you hear people, they're like, I love you, because they're waiting to hear it back. That's not genuine love. You should be able to say, I love you, and not expect anything in return. When you get it in return, that's a beautiful thing. But expecting it, that's a demand. That's weird. That is just bizarre. When you get it, that's awesome. And so I love it when my daughter gives me hugs, because I know it's genuine. I know it's not because it's some creep salad thing where I'm like, you better hug me. So really creepy. Your brother is a narcissist. I'm sorry, that's tough. My dad died and I have to communicate with my mom, but it's crazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. My dad just died a few months ago and it's hard. It's really hard. It's also hard setting boundaries with family when you really love them. You know, sometimes on some channels, it's like they do make the narcissist like this person that you should just easily be able to discard the way that they discard. But it's hard when you really care about these people. I get it. It's really, really difficult. There's ways to navigate it though, if you're not physically in danger, but your emotional danger is also very, very important. Yeah, above you typed more. What? I've been on a narcissist deep dive. I'm not surprised my brother's married, but I never knew anything about covert narcissism regarding my mom. Oh, is your mom a covert narcissist? I think the covert narcissists are the worst ones. I mean, because they are so sneaky. And these are the ones that can come in when you have been healed or healing from narcissism, especially. Or, I mean, they can come in anytime. Let's be honest. They're everywhere. So all these videos that are like, why did you attract that? Why did you attract that? It's like, why did you attract water? Why did you attract rain? You didn't do that. They are around. They're everywhere in the world now. And there's even channels teaching it. I mean, they're teaching it. I remember in my 20s, there were so many books and information. I mean, they still have them on, you know, why the girl should be a biatch and everything. And that's how to get the man. And I was like, what? Why? Sounds crazy. And now looking back, I realize it's just teaching narcissism, because a lot of times narcissists do win, but they don't win in the end. Ultimately, they don't. It's a sad existence, really. So anybody teaching you that that's how you should treat people and be in the world, I would definitely run. I would run away from them. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I want to talk to you guys more, but I actually got to run. We're going to go watch some fireworks. So let me know how you feel about this in the comments. And please do subscribe if you haven't, because it raises awareness, but also then we can create new stuff and we can move forward in a positive, happy, healthy way. So be independent from that guilt of setting boundaries, and know that it's healthiest for you and everyone involved. You're absolutely amazing and you matter. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye. I never know how to get off of here. That's so funny. I'm going to learn this, you guys. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. How do I get out? Does anybody know? Oh, also last time my comments disappeared. If anyone can tell me how to keep them, because I had my comments enabled. I think it might have been because I lost my Wi-Fi connection though. So maybe that's why, but I don't know. You guys are going to see me fumbling now for a little while because I don't know how to get out of here.